do this?
It's pretty in there. Looks
They
good.
did a good job.
Wait, what's that thing behind you? Oh, wait, we're live.
We're live. I'm giving Kara a tour of my new office.
Looks
Do-
good. I'm liking it.
I know, do you like the Morocco inspired?
I do like
Hey,
that.
everybody. Dr.
So we are,
Kara.
Dr. Hillary over there, who really takes care of your ambiance, right? Because it makes you happy to have a good environment. I think it's like a really big deal for people. Like,
look at yours. Yeah. Look at your inspiring plant. Your picture.
I really like plants. I'm really happy about it. The thing I had scheduled for later today was actually to go to a farm here where the seedlings are, it's like the seedling sale because it's right before Memorial Day here. And that was my big thing I had scheduled after work today. So celebrate plants. Anyway, those are things that make me happy and raise my serotonin. I'm very clear on those things. I had done a genetic test a few years ago, and it was fun to go through it and see that the way you are set up is really interesting. Like in the way I was set up, that it was very clear. It's like things like food, things I love, people I love really do actually create these neurotransmitters and make me happy. Where, you always say that, Hillary, that you're sort of born with a certain set point, but it doesn't determine your overall happiness, right? You can tell us more about the science on that because you've studied it a lot, but it was really interesting to me to see that because I'm like, yeah, actually I have a good meal and I'm pretty pumped, and people who are like, I can take the food or I can leave it. I know I kind of have to eat, but I'm kind of like, I'm always so confused.
I'm so confused by those people. Yeah. It's like, I wake up and I'm like, what do I get to eat today? But what's interesting about my genetics, so what we're talking about today is the gut health, serotonin, dopamine, happiness, and sort of the intersection of gut health and happiness. And my genetic test showed that I am deficient just genetically in serotonin and dopamine. So I have a setup for dopamine craving behaviors, which is really interesting because I come from a family of alcoholic, a family of addiction. And so I think those of us that have this genetic setup where we don't make enough both serotonin and dopamine, both of feel good neurotransmitters in the brain, that we are people who tend to try to get high from outside stimuli, whether it's food, sugar, alcohol, sex, drugs, rock and roll, whatever. But it's the genetic setup, and our tests were really different in that way. Like yours were you just had more. And so it's so illuminating.
It is illuminating.
Yeah, when we did the, her and I, it like blew our minds. We were really debating, should we do these genetic tests? Is it weird? Like
I don't know why we were debating. I guess because we were at a conference and we were sort of like, I like what this guy had to say. Okay, let's just do it. I think, and we were worried about giving our genetic material over at that point. It was
early, but both of us, it was flippin' fascinating what we learned.
Absolutely.
And I learned, well, I have the genes for dementia and Alzheimer's, which is interesting because there's a lot of it in my family. So when you know that, and it wasn't until we were just recently together and then I was like, wait, I need to re-look at this and keep looking at it. And that my mental health genes were off. And there is mental illness in my family and addiction, like I said. So it's one of those things where it just starts to make sense. And then I have PCOS. So then there's this hormone background. So then it just starts to make sense why I have had to work a little harder to be happy, or why, just that, oh, I get it. So once you kind of understand your either genetic background or how you process the world, it does make it easier to be like, okay, I have to preferentiate for me, I'm an extrovert. I have to preferentiate time with people to connect because I get energy when I'm around other people. Their happiness makes me happy.
Mhm.
Seeing them do better makes me feel good. And like me alone all day on like a hike, like it's kind of nice. But by the end of it, I'm like,
have you ever done that?
have I ever spent one whole day by myself alone?
Yeah, like,
I don't think so.
that's so interesting. I love that. See, people are just so unique. I mean,
Yeah.
so unique.
I don't think so. I think that I don't think so. But what is very interesting, so when Kara was talking about the happiness research, so the great thing about the year 2023 in medicine is in psychology is that there is so much movement, momentum on our rituals, on our there are so many coaches, there are so many, like the world is just blowing up. When I studied psych in college, I was a psych major. It was so diagnostic, like what's wrong with the person and kind of sizing them up against the DSM-5, like really trying to figure out. And that all has merit still in medicine, obviously. But like there's also just this underlying bit now that we know that human beings have to actually work on their happiness, that it's an daily act. It's a practice. It's not just if you're born with it or if you're born wealthy, then therefore you're going to be happy. We know that not to be true at all. Because the interesting thing about the happiness research is it shows that about 40% are your genetics. So what we were talking about the genetic test. So Kara starts off instantly better. Her happiness she's naturally happier than me if you're just looking at the 40%. She comes from a line of naturally happier people.
Oh, that's nice.
Right? And you generally are just like, you are on the sunny side of life. You look at the positive. You don't take things that hard. You don't get that stressed. And you generally, your operating system is glass half full.
It is glass half full. I actually really do automatically go to glass half full, but that it gets derailed. When you're done. It's like okay, that you can be set up that way and make very poor lifestyle choices. You know, like if you deprive me of sleep, I am a super grump. Do you know what I mean? Like it's real.
Let's talk about it. So it's because 40% is the genetic outlook. 10% is basically the environment in which we live in. So that's your house, whatever, your car, your job, your friends. That's only 10%, which is fascinating to me because most Americans, at least, are playing their game subconsciously, unconsciously, or consciously for the 10%, right? Most people are playing to have the good job.
If only I have this, if only I get that, or if only I join that club, if only I get to move there. Yeah. And it doesn't really do it.
And like we are being advertised to for that 10%.
Oh yeah.
And so in our minds, that 10% is bigger, but it's actually only 10%. And this is why we can have people in our offices that have anything they want, and yet they're still suffering from anxiety, depression. It's because the other 50% is lifestyle. It is daily choices that keep your body in healthy resonance. Your food, your exercise, your social connectivity, whether you're an extrovert or introvert and you're feeding that part, that you have good connectivity and community that you are working with, that you give to the environment more than you take. So that's like a fascinating thing that they find that people who have rituals where they are givers in this world, that they through either church communities or whatever they do to give to the environment, to give to their community, they score happier on people that have nice homes. And this is why, like when you go to Thailand or whatever, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of poverty here, but people have smiles from ear to ear, or they're beaming in health. Like it's just a different happiness quotient.
Yeah, it is. It is. And it's cultural. A lot of it's cultural, right? It's sort of like how we are taught as children to interact with people and what we're supposed to do in our daily lives. You know, it's like deciding what your goal is and working toward it may not just be all there is in life. I just had a patient this week whose husband had passed away and is living quite an isolated life, very isolated. And I was sort of going through, this person doesn't feel well. And I was going through the lab work hill, like, I'm like, hey, this looks good. You know, there's nothing to do here. This is
Totally normal.
perfect, right? So I'm like, it's not here. So let's explore your lifestyle a little bit. And it was that. It's sort of like not any connection, not in a community. You know, I'm asking all the questions like how, you know, and I'm sitting there like, how am I going to help this person? What am I going to do? And at the end of the day, I was like, the one thing you're going to do is get some volunteer work and go and do some volunteer work to get around people and have that kind of feeling. Cause it's like us beings are not supposed to be sitting in our houses alone. We're just not. We're not. You really need to connect with people, and it's the research on loneliness is horrific.
I just had a patient yesterday that's isolating, depressed. Yes. And this is the really hard thing about depression, because depression makes you not have good energy. It makes you not feel good. So then you tend to isolate more. And a lot of people really question themselves socially when they're depressed. They question being in a group is hard, or being in a social conversation, because they question, was that, did I just sound stupid? Do I look dumb? Like they're questioning themselves all the time. And then isolate. Well, this cutie, her vitamin D was, it was really low. I forget. It was maybe like a 7 or something, really like tragically low. And she hadn't been outside, and I said, you're literally, it's like, if you're a plant, it's like putting a plant into a closet, and nobody waters it, and there's no sunlight. And so what is going to happen to the plant? And the patient's like, well, the plant's going to die. And I was like, you're a human being. You need sunlight. You need food. You need connection. You need touch. We're human. We're pack animals. We need touch. We need connectivity. And in our society, we've become much less socially connected. So when you see culturally some of the societies that don't have the same wealth that we have as a general society, like in Vietnam or Thailand or some of those Asian, when you go and you just see a radiance, this natural born, that they have a connection to typically spirituality and community. They live in higher density situations. They live connected in community, and that really helps to keep them happy. And, anyway, so the 50% is obviously what we're playing for here at Doctors in Demand. Like, you're born with what you're born with. Great. And now we get to influence all the genes that you have and express them in the most positive way to make serotonin, to make dopamine. A lot of that comes from your diet. And we've been talking a lot about foods and inflammatory foods and foods that cause kind of smoldering inflammation in your gut, and how that can have a real negative impact on your happiness.
I have my weed whackers going on out here with the
I can't hear it.
Okay, if it's bothering, I'll go back on.
It's like me last week by poolside in New Orleans with the screaming children, and I'm like, they're not my children.
That was awesome. You're like not paying attention to the kids in the pool. You're just talking to me, but they were your kids. So anyway, that point that you're making though about the food link with the mood is so crucial. And I think this is the part of medicine that I find so fascinating to do the reading on, and to really look at what we're eating as far as additives in our food and all that kind of stuff. Like, it is incredible to see just the link between, oh, that person's eating that every day and they're reacting to that every day. And now they feel awful and they are depressed and they are are having anxiety. And I'm telling you, like, I experience this myself. If I go on, we'll just call it a sugar bender, because it seems like if I have a little sugar, then I end up a few days later having a lot of sugar. Like it just like, it goes, it's like a sugar bender.
Wasn't it the other day? I think I got a text and you had made yourself a
oh, there was some bad
brownie. You had a brownie for dinner.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She had had a really long, busy week. So I think her Friday night, she was like, a brownie has eggs in it. I'm counting the eggs as protein and I'm moving along like this is my dinner.
That happened.
I was like,
sugar bender.
Kara needs her family. She needs hugs. She needs sleep. And it's so fascinating to watch because Kara, generally, you guys don't know, you don't eat with her, but she eats more greens and salads. Like the girl loves vegetable. Like I
actually crave that stuff, weirdly enough. Like that is actually true, without a doubt. But I can get into a sugar thing like nobody else. Like I will, if I have like a little sugar, then I'm like just thinking about like somehow it like creeps in all of a sudden. It's weird. And honestly, it's this thing that just, it's like a snowball effect of like this thing. But when I do make brownies, I'll tell you that I'm melting the chocolate and it's like the egg, like it smells, it's like they're incredible.
She doesn't make the best brownies. She makes
I do like brownies.
Professional.
Beautiful. It's like all organic. The egg yolks are bright orange. Like it's like almost like a souffle kind of brownie kind of situation. Really delicious. But anyway, it does have, there is some sugar in there, a lot less than most other people make, but it's true.
And that's the great thing about making food at home, you all.
Yeah.
Because when you're making food at home, even if it's a major comfort, Kara's always loved brownies. In med school, she made brownies were always her go-to move, like nourishing your family, nourishing your husband. Like it's just a thing you do. But when you're making food at home and you get to do it with so much less sugar. Like when I lived in Japan, the adorable, gorgeous Japanese people, these people are like so lovely and they love having a tea, much like the European. They have an afternoon tea and cake. And when you eat their cake, it doesn't taste like here. When we moved back here from Japan, my kids, we were like, ow, it almost hurt our mouth to eat the same thing we were eating in Japan here, like a muffin or something. They were like, it like hurts my mouth because the sugar was so extreme.
So extreme.
In Japan, it's more than less than half of the sugar. And so you can eat some of these things and of course, like delicate portions because they're very delicate people, right? So like, and you just learn like, if we just eat more delicate portions, what they're getting from that interaction in Japan is they love the sitting in the cafe and they're usually sitting out under some beautiful flippin' cherry blossoms. The aesthetic is gorgeous. You can tell they love connecting with their friends. They have very shy, like intimate connections. They're very kind of reserved and quiet, but you can see they're lit up. You can see they love dressing up for the event. And so then when they eat food that has wheat and sugar in it, but it's so much less, all the other things are creating the happy moment so that the gut isn't that bombarded. It's a very different experience than when you drive through the Starbucks drive-through and you get a big thing and a Frappuccino and you're by yourself and you're driving stressed out in traffic. That food's going to have so much of a more negative impact. Plus our food supply is by nature slightly more toxic and the sugar is triple. So when you make them at home, you can really make the ingredients work so much better for you and your family so that having a brownie for dinner isn't a total loss.
Well, anyway, my whole family did. That was just me who had it for dinner, but I was making them for my kids as like a special thing anyway. But I will say that if I do eat sugar like that, I have a lot less energy and I'm more toward depression for sure because it's linked, right? The more sugar, it does mess with your gut bacteria and creates all kinds of problems and inflammation in the body. It really is linked, like horribly clear I am just like, down a level as far as energy goes. It stinks. I wish it wasn't that way. It's true. I should not be eating I shouldn't eat that way.
And this is the thing that's hard, because in this life, when you're in a depressive, anxious, not happy, not at your full happiness quotient, it's like the cute girl that I was talking about when the plant's in the closet. You eat more sugar, you feel a little worse. Your brain is telling you something that's not the right thing. Your brain's saying, I just need to sleep instead of work out. And then it's like, oh, I can't be bothered with going to the social thing. And then you eat worse food. And so it is this very intense cycle. It's happening in your brain chemistry, but it's also impacting the choices you make, and then the choices you make are making it worse. So at some point you have to take a real stand for yourself and say, you know what, I'm doing this. And on a fertility journey, or as we age or go through hormone changes, it's really important. I'm doing this. I can see this pattern's happening for me. And so what do I need to do to shake it up? I need to drink some herbs, or do something that helps to brighten up my day. I need to eat fiber. Like eating fiber and protein alone, if you can focus on just like one thing, maybe the protein first, like 20 to 30 grams of protein in the morning with some fiber, colored vegetables. If anything else, colored fruits and vegetables, just reach for those. It will literally help you. If you're an introvert, you do something that's calming and quiet. If you're an extrovert, you make a plan with a friend. You literally have to schedule these things. If you haven't had a hug, if you haven't been touched, you need to reach out for a human being or an animal to touch you. You have to start to get physically held so that you have a response, a positive response. And then all of a sudden you're starting to make an upward swing. All of a sudden it's easier to make the healthier food. It's easier to go to the gym. It's easier to connect socially with somebody, or answer. It's easier to pay your bills so they're not hanging over your head. It's easier. It's just, you get on an upward cycle and your happiness goes up. Your brain feels it. Everything feels it.
So it's interesting that we call this self-care now. We didn't have this term. Like my grandparents never said self-care. It was not in their vocabulary.
They were working so hard in the day-to-day, right?
They had it all. Yeah. They had it all going on. But then I think for a few years, we would hear from our patients work-life balance, because we decided at some point as a culture that our work and there was work stress, and that was our problem. But, I don't think so. I think we don't say that as much, work-life balance, right? It's more like, how are we making our daily choices? And food is a huge one here as far as mood goes. Like food and mood, so connected. And it's really important to assess that. Like I kind of do this at night when I go to sleep. I'll think about kind of like, did I eat all my vegetables today? What did I do? So that then the next day, or like, did I get enough protein? I struggle sometimes with protein, and I'll think like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this out of the freezer and like roast that or whatever. And so that's one way to kind of go about it. But I think it's really crazy to link like how you're eating with your mood. So it's just incredibly important to know those things that trigger you and bother you. It really, really is a big deal. So seeing in your diet, like, what am I doing daily? Maybe I should skip doing that daily and really kind of think about how could be your breakfast is ruining your whole day. Like it really could, just based on what it is in your breakfast. So it's that link of, the serotonin is mostly made in my gut. It mostly exists in my gut. That is affecting my mood. What's going on in my GI system? How can I set it up properly? So you really have to figure out like what's right for you.
So we're recording this on a Friday. If you're listening to it live, happy Friday. And if you're listening to it on our recorded, then just today, look at your day and see what can you do, one, through your diet, but two, also reaching out into community or being of service. Is it just smiling at somebody at the store? Is it complimenting somebody? Like I was meant to say earlier before we went live, that you look so pretty today. I love your combo. And I know you're just in your scrubs, so you don't feel pretty, but
we match so well. Did you
look really pretty? I know. Maybe it's that we look so good together.
I think we look good together, and your hair got done and it looks so good. I mean, my God.
I was turning into a silver fox over here.
No, it looks good.
Yeah.
It does. But
All right.
Well, it was like perfect.
Well, I'm excited. We're having where I work in Larkspur is a wellness team. I'm part of a wellness team, and I'm about to go meet all the other members of the wellness team. Some people I haven't met yet. So
I love the new office. It looks so nice.
Yeah, it's really lovely.
It's so pretty. I get to talk to you with a new background. It's fun.
I know. Happy Friday, everybody, if you're live with us. And it's sending you all a lot of love. Go make yourself happy. Bye, sweetie. Love you.